think Apple is really in between a rock and a hard place with China. On one hand, they are out, even though they say they're going to increase investment in China, everybody knows that they are moving a lot of manufacturing capacity to India and elsewhere. And, obviously that's got some issues that Apple's going to have to work out with, because the supply chain in China is so, well put together and has taken, so long to develop. Now, it won't take a decade to develop in India and elsewhere, but it will take a little bit of time. And in that middle time, there's sort of this awkward period where Apple's still trying to sell iPhones and maintain their market share, the declining market share. They fell out of the top 5. They're now around 14%. Down from the high of about 25% a few years ago of market share. So that's a problem for them. And it's kind of like a couple that is also in business together. They're getting a divorce, but maybe we can still do business. I don't know. That business is probably not long for this world. So I think they do face an intrinsic issue, and I think it was reflected in the government, about a year ago, banned iPhones from government employees. That sends a message that's real, that people, I think, pay attention to in China, and I think that's one of the reasons the market share has fallen. And I don't think, because Apple is behind on artificial intelligence, and they can't use in China, they cannot use foreign large language models, so they're going to have to do a deal with a local developer of large language models. All these things, I think, point to a pretty lackluster future, at least in the near term, within the next year or so, for iPhone sales in China.
You're saying the stock is not pricing in the slower growth profile. I get that. On the product front, which is probably why Cook is there, right? I mentioned just before I got to you, that they're lowering their sales expectations for iPhone 16 by 10 million units, fourth quarter of this year out to first half of 2025. And it's at a time when, buyers in China, right? This is an Android universe. It's not an iOS universe, right?
Yeah.
They're looking for new phones with all the features in them. And, and Apple Intelligence has not launched yet in China.
Exactly.
They're supposed to launch, I think, in the fall in the U.S., but in China, I think it seems like they're way away from that.
Yeah, so that we're gonna. That's exactly right. The problem is that China is an Android universe, so they don't have the software grip that they have here in terms of all of the apps that you would normally have. The relative advantage that they have here in the US, they don't have in China. And I think that has further, and also the Chinese consumer is very spec oriented. They really pay attention to the specifications of the new phone, and frankly, Apple has kind of been perennially behind. They've not been the first mover in terms of, the highest megapixel camera, folding phones, which are now, more of a popular thing in China, and Apple doesn't have really an answer to that. So, yeah, I think they do face, along with everything else, this moving the supply chain and all of that, they also face some real product issues, which limits their ability to, regain their share, and frankly, probably indicates that they're going to lose additional share.